The emergency session of the Galactic Council had been running for 6 straight hours, and tempers were beginning to fray. Ambassador Kethver watched the tactical display with growing dread as it showed the massive Krillian fleet now numbering over 800 ships gathering at the edge of the Sol system. The humans have refused our offer of military assistance, reported Admiral Zorkith, his voice strained from exhaustion. They insist they can handle the situation themselves. Council Moderator Prexinol's amphibious features twisted with concern. 800 ships, Admiral. Against what? We've confirmed that Earth has only 47 vessels capable of interstellar combat. 47 primitive vessels, corrected Ambassador Veltar. Their most advanced ship couldn't match one of our patrol cruisers. Survey Leader Quindos shifted nervously in his chair. Perhaps our initial assessment was incomplete. The Perseus incident suggests— The Perseus incident was an anomaly, interrupted the Corvan delegate. Luck and desperation against a small raiding party. This is different. This is a full military invasion. Ambassador Kethver studied the intelligence reports spread across his desk. In the 72 hours since Admiral Kane's force had captured the Krillian raiders, more disturbing information had emerged. The humans hadn't just defeated their enemies. They'd interrogated the survivors with a thoroughness that revealed a sophisticated understanding of military intelligence gathering. The humans have identified every Krillian base, supply depot, and command structure within 100 light years, he read aloud. How did they extract so much information so quickly? Admiral Zorkith's expression was grim. According to our observers, they used what they called standard interrogation protocols. Apparently, they have extensive experience in gathering intelligence from hostile forces. The tactical display updated, showing new movement in the Sol system. Instead of the expected defensive formations around Earth, the human fleet was deploying in what appeared to be an aggressive stance near the system's outer edge. They're not protecting their homeworld, observed the Vorthan representative. They're positioning to attack. Suicide, muttered the Corvan delegate. Brave, but suicide. An urgent chime interrupted the debate. The communication officer gestured toward Moderator Prexinol. Sir, we're receiving a transmission from the human homeworld. They're requesting permission to address the council directly. Put them through, Prexinol ordered. The main display shifted to show a Spartan office with flags and military decorations on the walls. Behind a simple desk sat a human woman in elaborate military dress, her gray hair pulled back severely, her eyes sharp with intelligence. Honored members of the Galactic Council, I am Admiral Elizabeth Torres, Supreme Commander of Earth Defense Forces. I understand you've been monitoring the situation in our system. Admiral Zorkith leaned forward. Admiral Torres, we've offered military assistance to defend your homeworld. Why have you refused? The human admiral's expression didn't change. Admiral, I appreciate the offer, but I want to make something clear to the Council. We're not planning to defend Earth. The chamber erupted in confused murmurs. Moderator Prexinol raised his hand for silence. Admiral Torres, I'm not sure I understand. Are you evacuating your population? Negative, Moderator. We're going to destroy the Krillian Confederation completely. The silence that followed was deafening. Finally, Ambassador Kethver found his voice. Admiral Torres, you face overwhelming odds. 800 enemy ships against fewer than 50 of your own. Admiral Torres glanced at something off-screen, then returned her attention to the Council. Ambassador, I think there's been a misunderstanding about Earth's military capabilities. You've been observing our exploration and colonization fleets, not our actual military. She gestured, and the display behind her lit up with technical specifications. The 47 ships you've identified are our deep space exploration and colony support vessels. They're designed for extended missions, scientific research, and civilian protection. Admiral Zorkith studied the specifications with growing confusion. Then what exactly constitutes your actual military? Well, Admiral Torres said with what might have been amusement, let me show you. The tactical display in the council chamber suddenly updated with new sensor data from the Sol system. Where moments before it had shown a handful of human ships, now it displayed hundreds of contacts emerging from what appeared to be empty space. "Cloaked vessels," whispered the sensor operator. "I'm reading 300, 500. The count keeps climbing." Admiral Torres' voice continued over the chaos in the chamber. "You see, council members, humanity learned something important during our history of warfare. The best way to win a fight is to make sure your enemy doesn't know what they're really fighting until it's too late." The sensor count stabilized at over 1,200 human vessels, ranging from small, fast attack craft to massive ships that dwarfed anything in the council database. 1,200 ships, breathed Admiral Zorkith. Where were they hidden? "Asteroid bases, deep space platforms, and mobile shipyards," Torres explained. "When you live on a world where everyone has been trying to kill everyone else for thousands of years, you learn the value of strategic depth and hidden reserves." The tactical display showed the Krillian fleet still massing at the edge of the system, suddenly facing odds of nearly 2-1 against them. "But that's not the concerning part," Torres continued. "The concerning part is that every ship in this fleet is crewed by personnel with actual combat experience. Real warfare, not policing actions or border skirmishes." She gestured to another display. "In the last century alone, Earth has fought 17 major wars, 43 regional conflicts, and over 200 smaller engagements. Not against primitive enemies, but against ourselves. Every tactical innovation you can imagine, we've tested in blood." Ambassador Kethver felt something cold settle in his stomach. "You've been testing military tactics on each other?" "Refining them," Torres corrected. "Every generation of human warriors learns from the previous generation's experiences. We've developed tactics for fighting enemies with superior technology, greater numbers and better resources because we've been the inferior force as often as the superior one." The display showed close-up images of human military personnel, men and women whose faces held the same hard-earned experience that Admiral Kane's officers had displayed. But these weren't exploration crews or colonial marines. These were professional warriors from a species that had never known peace. "Admiral Torres," Moderator Prexenal said carefully, "surely there's a diplomatic solution to this conflict." "The time for diplomacy ended when they decided to target our civilians," Torres replied, her voice taking on an edge that made the council members uncomfortable. "The Krillians want a war? They're about to learn what war actually looks like." The tactical display updated again, showing the human fleet beginning to move. Instead of a single formation, they'd organized into multiple task forces, each approaching the Krillian position from a different vector. "Classic pincer movement," observed Admiral Zorkith. "But the execution is ... "Perfect," finished Survey Leader Quindos. "The coordination required for that many ships to move in formation like that ... How long have they been practicing these maneuvers?" Admiral Torres heard the question through the open channel. "Continuously, Survey Leader. Human military doctrine requires constant training. We run fleet exercises monthly, war games quarterly, and full-scale combat simulations annually. Our officers are expected to be ready for conflict at any moment." The Krillian fleet, apparently recognizing the changed tactical situation, was attempting to reorganize into a defensive formation. But they were facing an enemy that had spent centuries perfecting the art of warfare against equals. "The Krillians are trying to establish a defensive perimeter," reported the sensor operator. "But the human formations are adapting faster than they can respond." On screen, Admiral Torres was consulting with her staff, a collection of humans whose uniform variations suggested different specialties and service branches. "Admiral," one of her officers reported, "forward scouts confirm that the Krillian flagship is at the center of their formation. Warlord Scareth is aboard." "Good. Target the command structure first, then work outward. Standard decapitation protocol." Admiral Zorkith recognized the tactical terminology. The humans were planning to systematically destroy the enemy command hierarchy, leaving their forces leaderless and unable to coordinate effectively. "Admiral Torres," he called out, "your people are about to engage in the largest space battle in recorded galactic history. Surely the loss of life will be minimized wherever possible," Torres interrupted. "Admiral, we're not savages. We follow the rules of war, even when our enemies don't." The first engagement began at the edge of the system, where fast human attack craft engaged the Krillian perimeter. Instead of the chaotic brawl that characterized most space battles, the human assault was methodical, coordinated, and devastatingly effective. "The humans are using layered assault tactics," observed the sensor operator, his voice filled with professional admiration. "Each wave has a specific objective: electronic warfare, point defense suppression, primary target engagement." The Krillian perimeter began collapsing as their ships found Tej. 3 days after the Kepler incident, emergency klaxons wailed through the Galactic Council's military headquarters on Nexus Prime. Admiral Zorkith of the Altarian Defense Fleet burst into the Situation Room, his usually pristine uniform disheveled from racing through the corridors. "Report." He barked at the duty officer, a nervous Vorthan whose crystalline form flickered with stress patterns. "Admiral, we're receiving distress calls from across the Outer Rim. Krillian raids have increased by 300% in the last 72 hours. But that's not the worst part." Zorkith's mandibles clicked impatiently. "Continue. They're specifically targeting human vessels and colonies. Intelligence suggests they're seeking revenge for the New Horizon incident." The tactical display lit up with dozens of red markers scattered across 3 star systems. Each marker represented an attack on human targets, supply ships, research stations, and small settlements. "How are the humans responding?" Admiral Zorkith asked, though he suspected he already knew the answer. "That's where it gets complicated, sir. Earth has dispatched what they call a response fleet to the affected regions." The Admiral studied the display. "How many ships?" 12 vessels, Admiral. They call them destroyers and cruisers, though by our classifications, they're barely larger than patrol boats." Zorkith felt a mixture of sympathy and resignation. 12 primitive ships against an entire pirate confederation was suicide, even if the humans had managed one lucky victory against a single raiding party. "Sir," the duty officer continued hesitantly, "there's something else. The lead human vessel is requesting permission to dock at Station Gamma 7 for consultation." "Consultation about what?" "They want to discuss rules of engagement with our military command." Admiral Zorkith's laugh was bitter. "Rules of engagement? They're about to be slaughtered, and they want to discuss protocol?" An hour later, Admiral Zorkith found himself in Conference Room 12 aboard Station Gamma 7, facing the most unusual delegation he'd ever encountered. The human military officers were smaller than he'd expected, their equipment primitive-looking, their uniforms simple cloth rather than advanced materials, but their eyes held something he'd rarely seen in supposedly primitive species. Experience. The kind that came from survival in situations that should have been impossible. The human leader introduced himself as Rear Admiral Marcus Kane, a grizzled man whose face bore several visible scars. His voice carried an accent that the translator struggled with. "Admiral Zorkith, appreciate you taking the time to meet with us. I know you folks have your hands full with these pirate problems." "Indeed," Zorkith replied cautiously, "though I must ask why you've come here instead of returning to Earth for safety." "The Krillian Confederation has marked your species for retaliation." Admiral Kane exchanged glances with his staff, a mixture of humans wearing different colored uniforms. "See, that's where we have a problem. These pirates attacked our civilians. Families, children, where I come from, that doesn't go unanswered. I understand your desire for justice, Admiral Kane, but your fleet is severely outmatched. Our intelligence suggests the Krillians have assembled over 200 ships for this campaign." 200 ships, repeated a younger human officer. Her nameplate read Colonel Martinez. "How many crew per ship on average?" Zorkith was puzzled by the question. "Approximately 50 to 100, depending on the vessel class." "Why, do you ask?" The humans exchanged another look, and Admiral Kane made a note on an archaic paper pad. Just planning purposes, Admiral. Now, about these rules of engagement, do the Krillians follow any kind of military code? Laws of war? The Krillians recognize no such laws, Admiral Kane. They're pirates and slavers who prey upon the weak. No rules of war? Kane's voice was flat, emotionless. No protection for civilians? No quarter for prisoners? I'm afraid not. Admiral Kane closed his notepad with a sharp snap. Well then, that simplifies things considerably. Before Admiral? Zorkith could ask what he meant. Alerts began sounding throughout the station. The duty officer's voice crackled over the comm system. Admiral to the command center immediately. We're receiving reports from the Perseus sector. The entire delegation moved to the command center, where the main tactical display showed a bewildering scene. In the Perseus sector, 12 small human ships were arranged in what appeared to be a defensive formation around a Krillian fleet of 47 vessels. The humans engaged the Krillian force approximately 20 minutes ago, reported the sensor. Operator, a young Altarian whose voice trembled with confusion. The pirates were attacking the human research station at Perseus 4. Admiral Zorkith studied the display with growing concern. Why aren't the human ships retreating? They're outnumbered 4-1. Admiral Kane moved closer to the display, his expression calm. Operator, can you give us real-time tactical data? Yes, sir, the Altarian stammered. The Krillians are moving to surround the human formation. They're beginning their attack run. On the display, the cloud of Krillian ships began their assault. Energy beams lanced out toward the human vessels, who seemed to be moving in coordinated patterns, despite their apparent disadvantage. The humans are. They're not where they're supposed to be, the operator said, his voice filled with confusion. The Krillian targeting systems can't seem to lock onto them. Colonel Martinez leaned over to Admiral Kane. Standard evasive maneuvers, sir. Echo formation with random dispersal patterns. Kane nodded. Let's see what these pirates are made of. The tactical display showed the first wave of Krillian ships passing through what should have been the human formation, their weapons firing at empty space. The human ships had scattered in a pattern that looked chaotic but somehow avoided every incoming shot. How are they predicting the attack patterns? Admiral Zorkith asked. Experience, Kane replied simply. Most of my officers have been doing this for 20 years or more. After a while, you learn to read the enemy. The second wave of Krillian. Ships began their attack run, but this time the humans weren't just evading. Small objects began launching from the human vessels, too small for the sensors to track clearly. What are those launches? Zorkith demanded. Boarding pods, Colonel Martinez answered. Each one carries a 6-person marine assault team. Assault. Teams against ships that size? Admiral Kane's scarred face showed what might have been a smile. Admiral, what's the standard crew complement of a Krillian raider? 50 to 70 beings, depending on... Zorkith stopped as understanding dawned. You're sending 6 soldiers against 70 pirates? 6 Marines, Kane corrected. There's a difference. On the display, the first boarding pods reached their targets. Almost immediately, 3 Krillian ships began showing power fluctuations. Sir, the sensor operator called, his voice tight with disbelief. I'm reading internal explosions on multiple Krillian vessels. Engineering sections, weapon systems, command centers. It's like the attacking forces know exactly where to strike. They do know, said another human officer, this one wearing navy blue. Ship layouts haven't changed much in the last few centuries. Hit the power coupling here, the weapons control there, take the bridge, secure the engine room. Basic boarding operations. Admiral Zorkith watched in fascination as the tactical situation reversed itself with shocking speed. The Krillian fleet, which had begun the engagement with overwhelming numerical superiority, was being systematically dismantled from within. 8 Krillian vessels are now dead in space, the operator reported. 12 more are showing significant damage. The remaining ships they're trying to retreat. Trying? Zorkith asked. Admiral Kane checked his wrist chronometer. Marine. Teams have had enough time to secure the engineering sections. The pirates' engines won't respond properly now. The display showed the attempted Krillian retreat dissolving into chaos as ship after ship found their propulsion systems failing or responding erratically. Some ships spun helplessly, others moved in slow circles, and a few simply drifted powerless through space. "This is incredible," whispered the sensor operator. "The human boarding teams have taken control of the entire Krillian fleet in under 40 minutes. Colonel Martinez checked her own tactical tablet. 42 minutes. Bit slow, but acceptable considering the ship count. Admiral Zorkith turned to stare at the human officers. "Slow? You've just captured 47 enemy vessels with 12 ships and how many Marines?" 72 Marines total, Kane replied, though that included the technical specialists for disabling the ship's systems. 72 humans defeated over 3,000 pirates. "Well," Kane said thoughtfully, "defeated might be a strong word. Most of the pirates are still alive. We try to minimize casualties when possible." The sensor operator's voice cut through their conversation. "Admirals, I'm receiving a transmission from the human fleet." "Put it through," Zorkith ordered. A new voice filled the command center, speaking in crisp, professional tones. "This is Commodore Sarah Chun of the Human Vessel Retribution to all Council and civilian vessels in the Perseus sector. We have secured 47 Krillian vessels and taken approximately 2,800 prisoners. We are requesting immediate medical assistance for wounded pirates and guidance on prisoner transfer protocols." Admiral Zorkith felt his worldview shifting. "Commodore Chun, this is Ad." The Galactic Council chamber buzzed with quiet conversation as representatives from dozens of species took their seats. Ambassador Kethver of the Zephyrian Empire adjusted his ceremonial robes and glanced at the datapad containing today's agenda. Item 7 caught his attention. Preliminary assessment of species 7849C, humans of Terra. "Another backwater species seeking membership," he muttered to his aide. "A younger Zephyrian named Veltar? What makes these humans think they belong among civilized races?" Veltar consulted his notes. "According to the initial survey, Ambassador, they've only recently achieved faster-than-light travel. Their technology is primitive by our standards. Most concerning, they appear to have spent most of their recorded history engaged in warfare with their own kind." Kethver's 4 eyes rolled in unison. "Savages, then? The Council will probably grant them observer status and hope they mature over the next few centuries." The session began with typical bureaucratic formalities. The Altarian delegate droned on about trade regulations, while the crystalline Vorthan representative clicked through a presentation on mining rights in the Outer Rim. Finally, Council Moderator Prexenal called for the human assessment. "The survey team has completed their preliminary evaluation of the human homeworld." "Terra," Prexenal announced, his amphibious voice echoing through the chamber. "Survey Leader Quindos of the Exploration Corps will present the findings." A tall insectoid being stepped forward, multiple arms adjusting a holographic projector. The chamber dimmed as images filled the air above them. "Esteemed council members," Quindos began, his mandibles clicking, "the humans of Terra present an interesting case study. Technologically, they lag behind council standards by approximately 2 centuries. Socially, they remain fractured into competing nation-states despite achieving global communication networks." The hologram showed images of human cities bustling with activity. To the council members, the architecture appeared crude, the vehicles primitive. What caught their attention, however, were the humans themselves. "The species appears remarkably fragile," Quindos continued. "Average height of 1.7 meters, no natural armor, claws, or defensive capabilities. Their bone density is surprisingly low, and they require constant intake of processed nutrients to survive. Most peculiar, they appear to leak salt water from their optical organs when distressed." Several council members chittered with amusement. The Corvan delegate, whose species stood 3 meters tall with natural exoskeletons, shook his massive head. "How did such weak creatures achieve sapience?" "That brings me to their most notable characteristic," Quindos said, advancing to the next hologram. "Humans appear to have an unusual relationship with violence. Archaeological evidence suggests they've been in constant warfare for over 10,000 years. However, this violence seems to be self-limiting. They rarely fight to complete extinction. The images showed ancient battlefields, medieval armies, and modern military equipment. To the Council, it looked like an endless parade of primitive conflicts fought with increasingly crude weapons. Their current military technology is laughably obsolete, Quindos noted. Chemical-propelled projectiles, basic energy weapons, and simple defensive systems. Their largest military vessels couldn't match a Council patrol craft. Ambassador Kethver leaned forward. What is your recommendation regarding membership? Given their primitive state and violent tendencies, I suggest observer status with a probationary period of 50 standard years. This should provide sufficient time for them to mature as a species. The Council murmured agreement. The humans seemed like countless other species they'd encountered, primitive, violent, and ultimately harmless to the greater galactic community. Very well, Moderator Prexenal declared. The motion for human observer status is an urgent chime interrupted the proceedings. A communication officer hurried to Prexenal side, whispering rapidly. The moderator's expression shifted from boredom to concern. Council members, we've received an emergency transmission from the Outer Rim. It appears a Krillian raiding fleet has attacked the human colony ship New Horizon near the Kepler system. The chamber fell silent. The Krillians were known pirates who preyed on weak species, taking slaves and resources. Their ships were fast and heavily armed, making them dangerous even to Council patrols. The transmission is from the human vessel, the communication officer reported. They're requesting ... assistance. Several Council members exchanged glances. It was tragic, but not uncommon. Primitive species often fell victim to raiders when they ventured too far from their homeworlds. Patch the transmission through. Prexenal ordered. Static filled the chamber before a human voice came through, speaking in their strange, guttural language. The universal translator worked quickly. This is Captain Sarah Chun of the Earth colonial ship New Horizon. We are under attack by unknown hostile vessels. Our civilian population is at risk. We have approximately 8,000 colonists aboard, including families with children. The voice was steady despite the circumstances. In the background, they could hear alarms and the sounds of activity. We've taken significant damage to our main engines and defensive systems. The attackers are demanding our surrender. Ambassador Kethver felt a pang of sympathy. Despite his dismissive attitude, he didn't enjoy seeing innocents suffer. Can we dispatch a patrol to assist them? The military liaison, a Corvan named Vexmore, consulted his tactical display. The nearest Council fleet is 18 hours away at maximum warp. By then, the implication was clear. The humans would be dead or enslaved long before help arrived. Captain Chun's voice continued. To any vessels receiving this transmission, we want you to know that Earth will remember what happened here. Our people don't forget. The transmission crackled with interference before the voice returned, now speaking to someone off-channel. Marcus, are the Marines ready? A different voice, rougher and deeper, responded. Locked and loaded, Captain. These bastards picked the wrong ship to mess with. Captain Chen's voice returned to the main channel. This is our final transmission. If we don't make it home, tell Earth that the New Horizon fought to the last. The transmission cut to static. The Council chamber sat in uncomfortable silence. They'd witnessed similar scenarios dozens of times, primitive species overwhelmed by superior force. It was regrettable but inevitable. We should at least monitor the situation, Veltar suggested quietly. Perhaps we can learn something about Krillian tactics. Moderator Prexenal nodded. Activate long-range sensors on the Kepler system. We'll observe what we can. The main display shifted to show sensor readings from the distant system. The human colony ship appeared as a slow-moving dot, surrounded by 6 smaller, faster signatures, the Krillian raiders. The human vessel has stopped, reported the sensor operator. The Krillian ships are moving to dock. Ambassador Kethver watched the display with growing sadness. Soon, the human ship would be stripped of everything valuable, its people sold into slavery or worse. It was the harsh reality of a galaxy where strength determined survival. Wait, the sensor operator said, his voice puzzled. I'm reading energy spikes from the human vessel. The display updated, showing sudden flashes of activity around the new horizon. The 6 Krillian ships that had been moving to dock were now scattering. "What are those readings?" Prexenal asked. "I'm not sure, moderator. The humans appear to be launching something." Small craft, moving at high velocity toward the Krillian vessels. The council members leaned forward, watching in fascination. The small human craft were tiny compared to the Krillian raiders, no larger than escape pods. "The Krillians are firing on the small craft," the operator continued. "But they're not hitting them. The human vessels are moving in irregular patterns, very difficult to track." On the display, the tiny human craft weaved between enemy fire with movements that seemed almost random yet purposeful. One by one, they approached the larger Krillian ships. "Energy discharge from the lead Krillian vessel," the operator reported. "It appears to be... it's gone dark. Complete power failure." A murmur ran through the council. Krillian ships were notoriously difficult to disable. Second Krillian vessel is also showing power failures. The remaining ships are attempting to retreat. Ambassador Kethver stared at the display in disbelief. "How are they doing this? Their technology is centuries behind Krillian standards." The sensor operator's voice took on an odd tone. "Moderator, you're not going to believe this. I'm detecting explosions inside the Krillian ships. It appears the small human craft weren't just vessels, they were boarding pods. The humans are inside the enemy ships." The chamber erupted in shocked conversation. Boarding actions were considered suicidal against technologically superior foes. The idea that primitive humans would attempt such tactics seemed impossible. 3 Krillian vessels are now dead in space," the operator continued. "The remaining 3 are fleeing at maximum speed, but the humans are pursuing." The display showed the damaged New Horizon launching more small craft. These moved even faster than the first wave, racing after the retreating pirates. "This is unprecedented," whispered Survey Leader Quindos. "The humans are hunting them." For the next hour, the council watched in stunned silence as the remaining Krillian ships were systematically hunted down. Each time, the humans used the same